Welcome to Insight, a collaboration between TV6 and the Quad City Times business magazine of the same name. And like the publication, we are taking an in-depth look at the local business landscape. I'm Marcia Lense. Today's topic, population growth in the Quad Cities. The latest census figures showed some counties grew, some shrank, but overall the size of the metro has remained about the same for decades. Today, you're going to learn more about an idea that could change that through immigration. Hear from the experts right now on Insight.
TV6 and the Quad City Times present Insight, the business journal of the Quad Cities.
We are talking about the idea of immigration growing the Quad City economy, and Sarah Watson with the Quad City Times was the reporter on this topic, joins us now to explain what she learned. And Sarah, I should preface that we are talking about legal immigration, right?
So we're talking about immigration and people coming to the Quad Cities who were born in other countries, refugees, immigrants, so that's what we're talking about today. Okay,
and so through your research, how did you find that immigrants or immigration can boost the economy?
Yeah, so the overall population of the Quad Cities has grown by about 1.1%, but the number of people who are born in other countries over the last 10 years, the population has grown by about 18%. And immigrants, refugees are more likely to be of working age, so between about ages 24 to 64. So that really those people are more likely to be looking for jobs, looking for work, and also foreign-born Americans are more likely to actually open businesses and so employ other people, and that overall boosts the economy, in addition to the amount of taxes and things taxes spent in the economy, money spent that boosts the economy, and as well as just, you know, the experiences and perspectives that they bring from other cultures and their way of life to make our Quad Cities more diverse and enriched.
Yeah, and you talked to some of these immigrants who have, really been able to integrate right into the community and succeed in the workforce. But there are obstacles as well.
Yes, so folks that I talked with really mentioned language and transportation are really two big problems and obstacles that they have to overcome. So transportation in particular, you really need a car in the Quad Cities is what people told me. It's not a want, it's a need. And so actually one immigrant from Rwanda that actually started a medical transport business for people who don't have a car so that they could still get to medical appointments, because you still need to get to medical appointments and fill out documents and things of that nature. And so, you know, sometimes you really just need a car to get to those things.
You also talked to some local professors about how this has an overall, or can have an overall impact. What did they have to say?
Yeah, so they said that, you know, overall immigrants, refugees, people born in other countries who are coming to America really do have a positive effect on the economy and on our way of life.
Yeah. And do you think the Quad Cities would embrace this idea?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly hope so. You know, I mean, so local businesses have implemented recruitment efforts to try to fill jobs that are hard to fill with folks that are born in the U.S. Tyson Foods, for example, has an immigration center where they bring Department of Justice certified experts in to go over documents and answer questions about the process in Spanish and English. And so that helps alleviate worries. People can just go to work and find those answers and not have to drive hours to get to other places or get to an immigration lawyer.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah Watson with the Quad City Times, for giving us an overview of this particular edition of Insight Magazine. And we are going to talk to some of the people that you have already mentioned and some of the research that was found. Next, we're going to meet those people featured in her article, including local professors who have studied immigration and the economy. We're going to hear their findings when we come back. Welcome back. We are learning more about the Quad City Times Magazine article on legal immigration and how it could possibly grow the QC economy. Joining us now are some experts. Chris Strunk is an Augustana College professor who specializes in international immigration. Jim Bang is a professor with St. Ambrose University who studies the economy of migrant populations. He's an economist. And Mark Holloway is Vice President of Talent and Inclusion with the Quad Cities Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining us. Let's start with Chris. First, tell us a little bit about your field of study.
I teach in the geography department at Augustana, and I've do research on population movement, and so done research on international migration, and then also how immigrants and refugees are adapting to new communities and how they're transforming those communities. And I've done research in collaboration with World Relief here in the Quad Cities.
So tell us a little bit about your findings, especially when it comes to the premise that the Quad Cities population or overall economy could be boosted through immigration.
Sure. So I conducted an analysis of recent census data with a student of mine at Augustana, and we found, as Sarah mentioned, that almost all of the population growth in the Quad Cities actually comes from immigrants. And that's pretty typical of areas in the Rust Belt and other metropolitan areas that have seen a lot of economic and population decline over the last 30 or 40 years. And so it wasn't too surprising to see that immigrants and refugees are making up a lot of the population growth, but they're also contributing a great deal to the economy, and that's something that really confirms research that's been done in other metropolitan areas in the U.S.
I wanted to talk to you, Jim, because you also have studied some of this. Give us a little bit about your background.
Well, I teach economics at St. Ambrose University, and in my research I focused a little bit more on the immigrants that come to the U.S. as well as other countries in terms of who they are, how they impact wages as well as the economy to some extent. And then a bigger area of my research focuses on how those immigrants use some of the incomes that they earn not only to help the local economy but to help their relatives and families in their home countries through remittances.
And so how do you feel about the premise of growing the economy through immigration? Is that a good idea?
So, I mean, one of the key drivers of economic growth is and always has been population growth. And so, one of the ways that you're able to, get population growth is through immigration, whether it's from, other states within the U.S. or from other countries. And, not only do we find that on average that, immigrants tend to increase the overall economic well-being of the regions that they immigrate to, but we also find that on average there's a slight increase in wages for most workers.
Let me be a devil's advocate and just say, what if you tried to attract natural-born citizens to your community instead? Is that plausible?
I mean, locally it would be plausible to attract U.S. citizens to the economy, but of course, that wouldn't necessarily work in the aggregate for the entire country. So, of course, the other way to achieve population growth is through, simply, natural population growth. In other words, people having more children.
Right.
But we've also noticed that just through people's natural choices that they're not choosing to do that.
Yeah, that's just not happening.
Right, and nationally,
or at least
even
not fast
locally.
enough.
Correct.
to achieve that kind of growth. So, Mark, you're with the Chamber of Commerce. Tell us a little bit about your job there.
So two of the major goals of the Chamber is to grow the GDP of the local economy, as well as to grow the population to over 500,000. And so if we have such lofty goals, one of the major ways that we're going to accomplish that is through immigration. And so oftentimes when immigrants come to the community, not only do they help fill critical need jobs, help fill a lot of the middle skills jobs that we are struggling to fill right now, but they also start jobs. And so that helps to grow our GDP. As Sarah mentioned earlier, they're more likely to start businesses, so they're adding to what's available here in the Quad Cities. So when people talk about, oh wow, what's neat about the Quad Cities, well, we have this section, we have this culture and that culture, providing more diversity and providing more opportunity here in the Quad Cities. So.
You know, I want to talk to you, though, a little bit about the business community and the community overall embracing this idea, because it wasn't long ago when we were still hurting from plant closures and the loss of jobs in this community, where people were saying, I don't want immigrants to take my job or the job of someone else. There was that kind of attitude. Has that attitude changed, and is the community, could they embrace this idea?
Well, I think now the pendulum is starting to swing, right? So now we have employers that say, we need people, right? And so the chamber is really focused on helping to develop young people to get the skill they need for the jobs. But as it was mentioned earlier, we're not going to birth our way out of this problem, right? We need to start attracting other people to this community, and the more inclusive that we are, that really bodes well for our business community and the community overall.
Mm-hmm. And so is the chamber leading the charge in this idea?
Well, we are really looking to convene partners, right? The chamber is really good at collaborating, and so it's going to be the business community and other stakeholders that care about immigration, that care about growing the economy, that we're looking to bring together to help solve this issue.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, though, is that there certainly are obstacles when you have immigrants come to your area. They may need some services. Sarah had mentioned, you know, transportation, language, and would our community be able to acclimate immigrants and get them settled? Do we have the services, and is that kind of a drag on the economy? Anybody?
So I'll jump in. I think there's different levels of immigration, right? There are some immigrants that come here who are highly skilled, right? They can come in, they already know the language. They can come in and be your doctor, they can be your respiratory therapist, they can be your nurse, they can be your marketing professional, right? A lot of countries now use English, you know, as part of their language. So when they come to this country, a lot of them already have English in their repertoire. So there's going to be across the board. Some will need services, but some will actually contribute to the economy as well. So.
And Chris wanted to mention college students. That's an area where we have international students that come here, and then many of them end up liking the Quad Cities and staying, right?
We hope so. Yes, but I think it's been really encouraging to see the number of international students at Augustana and other places in the region really increasing, and then I think a big part of what the chamber is trying to do, right, is to convince young people to stay, right?
Yes.
And so immigrants and refugees make up, I think, part of the strategy too. Whereas Sarah mentioned, they're much more likely to be in the be working age, and they're more likely to be in the workforce. And so when we're talking about services, certainly some refugees and immigrants, as Mark mentioned, sort of might need more services. But research shows that after a few years, immigrants tend to just be sort of like everybody else. They tend to use Medicaid and Medicare actually less than native-born residents, and their income catches up very, very quickly with native-born residents.
Yeah. So once they're assimilated, all is good. We're going to leave that at that note, and we're going to take a break. But next, we're going to hear more from our guests and an international recruiter for a major Quad City employer. That's next on Insight. Welcome back. We are talking about immigration and its impact on the economic growth of the Quad Cities. Augustana Professor Chris Strunk and St. Ambrose University Professor Jim Bang have both studied the subject. Mark Holloway is here representing the Chamber of Commerce. And also joining us now is Mary Beth Quattlebaum, an international recruiter for Unity Point Health. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So please explain what exactly is your job?
Yes, I'm a recruiter. I focus on nursing recruitment as well as speaking to the international recruitment as well.
So what kind of challenges do you run into when you're trying to recruit international employees?
That's a great question. So we have partnered with Lense, who actually helps us with those processes to ensure that they provide us with viable candidates on a pathway to citizenship, as well as meeting the needs for very specifically held positions, such as medical lab scientists. It's a very specific education that is hard for us to provide locally. So there are, the candidates that we're receiving have four-year equivalent degrees in this type of role, and they're able to provide those Filipino candidates for those opportunities.
Yeah, I guess another challenge is that, you know, certifications from other countries don't match the requirements of this country, right?
That can be something to face. Luckily, we've been working with Lense since 2018, so we have a very seamless process.
They kind of do the vetting for you.
Exactly, hands off for that. But we do take advantage of their opportunities to have that process in partnership with them.
And then once you get them on board, what are some of the needs they may have?
Yes, so the biggest thing I see is making sure that they feel that they have purposeful roots in our purposeful work and growing roots within the community. So our contracts are 3 years long, and with that contract of working at Unity Point Health, they have the opportunity for citizenship within the United States. So making sure that they get acclimated to the area. For example, you know, people come to the Quad Cities from the Philippines, they don't have winter coats. So we need to make sure that they are comfortable with the environment that they're working in and providing them a welcoming environment. What's wonderful is that our employees that work at Unity Point Health bring in an energy and an environment within our lab that is so wonderful. So we actually get so much benefit for having these employees work for us, because they provide a level of care and timely processing for lab results that our patients really need.
And they want to be here.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And we should give them boots as well if we're going to give them another coat.
I think so too, yes.
But there are some concerns that maybe they're taking jobs away from the local community. Are you not able to fill these positions locally?
That's a great question. So we are in a worldwide and nationwide staffing shortage, and this was pre-pandemic. So we are shifting into an employees market. We welcome anyone to apply to Unity Point Health positions, but there are specifically certified and educational specific requirements that our area does not provide. So we do need to look internationally for those opportunities. One of the things we say at Unity Point is know how much you matter to this world. And when we think about that, we need to expand to that worldwide opportunity for people outside the country who want to work as well.
Mm-hmm. Is language an issue, or does your company also help you with that, or do you have to kind of help people get caught up with their language skills when they arrive?
We have 18 employees right now, and 5 that we are processing at the moment, and we have not faced that issue. Mm-hmm. But yes, communication is vital
right.
to these opportunities, so being able to provide any assistance with that is paramount.
Yeah, I mean, and I think about it too, that we have a different measuring system
yes.
than, you know, internationally, and so even when it comes to dosing and things like that, you know, a mistake could be made just by not converting correctly, or?
Luckily, in the laboratory sciences, we use the metric system,
okay.
so that's not an issue.
Okay, all right. I had heard that before, but apparently they've resolved
Maybe
that.
the mileage for transportation, you know, if we say something's 3 miles away, that might be a little bit different, but
that makes
luckily
sense.
Our lab results are good.
That makes sense. So, Mark, I want to ask you, has the Chamber partnered with businesses like Unity Point Health to assist in what they're doing, or are you just working in tandem?
So the Chamber started a new initiative for talent back in 2021. And so we are starting to form those relationships right now. We know that is an issue. We are looking to convene partners who are interested in bringing more employees from outside this community, and just kind of look at some of the hurdles, address some of those hurdles, just like she mentioned earlier. And so we're starting that process now.
Mm-hmm. And another hurdle is paperwork. I mean, just to be able to get a visa, you know, we're hearing that it could take not days, not weeks, not months, but even years.
Yes.
I mean, are you running into that?
Yes, so the process does take a long time, but with that process, we're being able to make sure and ensure we have vetted and viable candidates for our opportunities. So when we have people that start working at Unity Point, they've already gone through that process.
I want to talk a little bit about how the economy is right now is much different than what it has been for decades in our community. So Jim, let me ask you, if the job market changes, what happens then? Can you still grow through immigration, or will there be some animosity or some more competition over jobs?
Well, you know, we've noticed through the data that a lot of immigration tends to track with the cycles of the economy. So, you know, when there is a shortage of workers, as we're seeing right now, there does tend to be more people who come to take advantage of those vacancies and opportunities. And you know, one of the things that we've seen when the economy goes through downward cycles is that, you know, fewer immigrants come, and even many immigrants choose to migrate back home, especially those immigrants who are, you know, here temporarily.
Okay, that makes sense. And is the chamber working on anything to try to, I don't know, keep this rolling, this beautiful job market that we have?
Certainly. So we are, first of all, partnering with the high schools, right, to start giving them more apprenticeships and internship opportunities for young people to find out what skills they need to really take advantage of the great jobs that we have here. Also, we're working across the board with minority business councils to, you know, people who've not been in the labor force as much as they could have been. We're encouraging them to get involved. So we're working with African American community, Hispanic community, women-owned businesses, saying, hey, let's get going. What can we do to help support that? And then we're also, again, partnering with great organizations to help create communities. So when we have immigrants move to this area, they can find some people that are like them, that can make a home-cooked meal, and just kind of make them feel like a part of this community. So get them integrated that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So promoting the idea internally and externally.
Yes.
All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the ways businesses are embracing an immigrant workforce, another guest, and more discussion on Insight. Welcome back. One of the attractions to the Quad Cities for immigrants is better paying manufacturing jobs. In fact, nearly half the workers at the Tyson Foods plant in Joslin, Illinois are foreign-born. And perhaps that's why Tyson is helping its employees become U.S. citizens. Monse Ricosa recently reported on the company's Immigrant Connection program.
A process that can take years to complete and cost thousands of dollars is now free for hundreds of Tyson employees working to become U.S. citizens.
At least those obstacles are removed. You have access to trustworthy, high-quality legal services. Your cost is down. And so really it's saying, how do we help immigrants?
And so that's the beauty of this program, is we're able to bring that directly to the team members and alleviate some of that concern that happens, as well as, hey, you don't have to figure out how to fill out that form. I do it because I've done a lot of them. And so it's able to make it a lot easier for them.
Tyson officials say about 40% of their employees are not U.S. citizens. They're looking forward to helping as many people as they can with the Immigrant Connection program and setting themselves apart.
Because we care about our people. We want our people to have a good quality of life. We want them to have a good, stable job. We want them to love being at Tyson. And this is just another way that we can serve them.
Through the help of translators, free attorneys, and Moline's Esperanza Center, the process becomes easier and more accessible, especially to those in rural communities.
The future that you dreamed of is possible. Yes, it may not be simple, but we can journey with you. We can journey along this and answer questions, clear away the confusion, And yes, it is possible. So let's step forward, let's step into this, and let's do this.
In Jocelyn, Monserricosa, TV6 News.
Now we are rejoined by some members of our panel. Mary Beth Quattlebaum manages international recruitment for Unity Point Health. We already introduced you to Sarah Watson, who is a reporter for the Quad City Times, and Matt Christensen is the executive editor with the Quad City Times. So let's start with you, Matt. Just tell us a little bit about the journey when researching this edition of the magazine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I think, let me back up and talk a little bit about just the structure of our magazine. We're led by an advisory board of some of the top businesses in the Quad Cities, and we work with them to find out what's happening in the economy, what's happening on the ground, what are they interested in, and then we take some of those conversations and use those to pursue story ideas. So the magazine has pursued everything from transportation issues to wages to succession planning to legislative initiatives. It's really a magazine that's built for people interested in the Quad Cities economy, with tips to take away to help your local business. So when we took a look at some of the census numbers and some community survey data and saw that the immigrant growth had been so huge, we decided to take a look at that as a story. I'm glad we did. You know, Debbie Durham was recently in town, the director of the Economic Development Authority in Iowa, and she talked on this issue too, specifically to the Quad Cities. So it's timely, it's interesting, and it matters a lot to folks. So we were happy to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, and you as the reporter, Sarah, did you run into anything surprising?
Yeah, so I thought one thing that I thought was interesting, so immigrants, refugees are more likely to open businesses, and so, but nationally it's actually at a higher rate than it is locally. So, so there are already a lot of resources for folks who want to start businesses. The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce works with folks in Spanish and English, and there are numerous other organizations that help refugees and immigrants, but I found that interesting that the rate at which immigrants and refugees open businesses is slightly lower than the national average. And one other thing, you know, Matt mentioned Debbie Durham coming to speak, you know, appointed by Republican Governor Kim Reynolds, and she really talked about how there are about twice as many twice as many job openings in Iowa as there are unemployed Iowans to fill them. So there really just are not as many people to fill open jobs in Iowa right now, and so we really need people who are coming here outside of you know, the U.S. or outside of the Quad Cities, outside of Iowa, to help fill those jobs that are open. And so, and you know, as the professors talked about, you know, U.S.-born folks may not be having children at a rate that might fill the, you know, and eventually, obviously, kids have to grow up and things, and so so that immigration, you know, really helps bring people to the Quad Cities when jobs are open.
Yeah,
so.
and Iowa and Illinois have to compete with the Sun Belt for a lot of people who, you know, may choose to leave the states, and so that's against us as well. I just wanted to talk to you, Mary Beth, a little bit about the issue of being able to keep immigrants and help them with success, because as you say, perhaps we don't have as many immigrants who are starting businesses. That's an indication that maybe there are some obstacles in the way, and that's kind of what your job is to try to remove some of those obstacles.
Yes.
Tyson is taking, you know, the step further by actually providing legal services. Is that something that you think Unity Point might do to expand?
I think it's a great thing that Tyson is doing, especially with people who are currently working at their facilities. At this time, our partnership with Westlink is what we only have for international employment, but when people are employed at Unity Point Health, we do have benefits that are beyond just competitive health care that incentivize people to stay, including something like education reimbursement. So those would be eligible for all employees, you know, born here or international. So being able to supply people with opportunities to grow within the organization is also paramount. see, we have a saying that says, come for a job, stay for a career. And when people come in as medical lab scientists or whatever position, they have opportunities to grow into leadership.
Yeah. So we've just got a few minutes left. Any conclusions from your research? Matt, Sarah?
I think the big takeaway for me was that for years now, the Quad Cities has made it a priority through Q2030 or other initiatives to really grow the population. And when we saw that the population that has grown in the Quad Cities has been largely immigrant-based, that was a major takeaway for me. And talking to business owners and folks who employ non-native Americans, you know, the need is really there for them, at least right now in the economy. So that was fascinating.
Yeah, Sarah?
Yeah, I would just kind of say ditto. I mean, yeah, just the number of job openings there are and not enough people to fill them. It, you know, it really illustrates the need that we, you know, should challenge. You know, you were talking earlier about, you know, maybe there's some controversy around immigration. You know, I think it's really important that people challenge, and we challenge those, you know, in beliefs that we have, and, you know, try to welcome these people that are so essential to making our community work.
Well said, and we will leave it at that. Thank you all for joining us, and it's been great information. But we're not done. We have more in a moment. From big to small business, a spotlight when we come back. Welcome back. In our business spotlight, we want to take a look at some of the remarkable things that set the Quad Cities apart. One of them, the world headquarters of one of the largest employers in the area and one of the oldest. Deere & Company. From the 1800s up until the 1980s, the ag and construction equipment manufacturer was managed by the Deere family. Recently, Sandy Hewitt, the great-great-great-grandson of John Deere, spoke at a collectors event known as the Gathering of the Green Conference. He is the son of former Deere & Company chairman Bill Hewitt. We talked about growing up, he talked about growing up in the Deere family and what it means still today.
It was certainly a center point of the family, and it was an honor to be a descendant of Deere, but I didn't really know it until years later. And it was a life full of a lot of experiences that I will cherish and that I learned a great deal from. And in terms of different cultures, different people, as my father took Deere & Company and expanded it internationally. And I have to always say that my mother was as much a part of developing the company as my father, because he learned a great deal from her and vice versa.
Sandy Hewitt grew up with his two sisters in Moline and actively participated in many equestrian sports, including owning Friendship Farms near the Deere headquarters. From one of the largest to some of the smallest, we also wanted to take time to shine the spotlight on a small business. In 2019, the Small Business Administration reported that small business made up about 44% of the economic activity in the U.S. So here is our salute to one of them. It's called Premier RV, and it's back as a local family-owned business. A few years ago, they sold their business to another firm, and now many of the family members and employees who previously worked there have created a new dealership. Premier RV is located in a brand new building on 9 acres in Bluegrass, Iowa, featuring travel trailers, service bays, and a paint booth. They have 30 employees. And if you would like your business featured in our Small Business Spotlight, head to our website and look for the Insight page. There you'll find a place to answer a few questions and submit photos. Also, if you have a comment or an idea and you want to read more about topics we cover, you can find a link to the Quad City Times Insight magazine. Next, learn about other topics covered by Insight magazine that you may see in future broadcasts. We hope you achieve some insight into how immigration plays a role in the Quad Cities' economic growth. And you can learn more in the Quad City Times Insight magazine. Matt Christensen is executive editor with the Times here again. And Matt, what other topics have you explored in the magazine?
Well, we take a look at topics that are going to be of interest to decision makers in town. It's a little bit different than the typical Quad City Times business page that we have every week. Insight really kind of focuses on trends and getting deeper into the top economic issues that are facing the Quad Cities right now. So we've looked at everything from succession planning, infrastructure. We did a large package on the effect that Amazon will have with its 1,000 employees when it comes to town pretty soon. So, you know, those are just some of the issues we've taken a look at, and we're certainly interested in what comes ahead for us as well. So.
Yeah, you definitely take a deeper dive into this subject as well. How do people get the magazine?
Well, it's a mail. You can contact the Quad City Times if you're a decision maker, and we'll try to get you on the mailing list. But the best way for folks who just want to check out the magazine is probably to do it digitally at quadcitytimes.com/insight, or like you said, the link's available on your website as well. But we'll have back issues there, new stories, and then new news as it pops up as well.
And finally, why did the Quad City Times decide that they wanted to present this magazine in a broadcast format?
Well, I think what we learned in the first several issues is that the story comes out and then there's a conversation that happens afterward a lot of times. And I thought that the conversation that we see happening after the journalism is published is almost just as interesting sometimes as the journalism itself. And so for us to be able to sort of continue that or capture that conversation or those discussions for the community to have a little more role in that, I think, you know, is a good move for us.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. We certainly appreciate you coming here today. And that wraps up our Insight. And we wanted to let you know that we're going to be back. We hope that you will be too. I'm Marcia Lense. Bye for now.